Mr. Chairman, thank you, gentlemen, for your service and for being here. And I look forward to the next session as well, the classified section. No hearing with the Air Force would be complete without me sort of jumping on board with some of my other friends who've asked about ISR. Secretary Kendall, I'm going to go in more at it from the reoptimization plans that were released in February. And my office has sent an RFI asking about how the new Air Force structure might affect the 319th Reconnaissance Wing in Grand Forks specifically. I mean, this is a very high demand Air Force base with very few people and assets. How do, I guess to put it pointedly, how do these low density, high demand units like the Global Hawk Wing in Grand Forks or other ISR units for that matter around the Air Force fit into the plan for reoptimization? And I just add, I mean, I read all 12 pages on an airplane this morning. There's not a mention of ISR. There's lots of mentions, 16 of China, RPC, 8. Anyway, no ISR in 12 pages. So how does Grand Forks fit into reoptimization?
It doesn't directly. The reoptimization for Great Cargo Competition is largely about focusing our readiness units on readiness, creating units that are focused on the future and sustaining advantage over time, developing our people, some of the things we're going to do in terms of their skill sets and so on, their readiness for that kind of conflict, and also some changes in the Secretariat. So specific units are not directly addressed. As we form units of action that are either deployable or fight in place or are supporting, there may be some changes on the margin as a result of that. That's work that is going to take place over some time. There is no direct correlation between what we're doing under reoptimizing and specific units.
Okay, but
we do have plans. I mean,
I understand, but maybe not specific units, but ISR at large is not even mentioned as a priority, where it used to be always mentioned as a priority.
Yeah, ISR is a very high priority under our operational imperatives and under cost-cutting operational enablers. It's a very big part of our modernization program, which is separate from the optimization. Right. As we talked about earlier, we're moving a lot of our ISR capacity into space because our airborne platforms, many of them are too vulnerable to attack. They're not survivable enough. We want to keep a balance. Yeah. We want to keep some airborne platforms and some space-based capabilities as well. We have requirements to have ISR for less contested environments, more benign environments, as well as highly contested environments. So we're trying to have a balanced mix of capabilities and sustain that while we move forward. Some of our legacy capabilities, if you will, are less valuable to us against the pacing challenge, or just not effective against the pacing challenge.
I understand all that. Modernization is important everywhere, and in every mission, and space is obviously critical to it. Obviously, I have a bias for space, but I also have talked to enough people both in space and especially COCOMs, especially very recently, who are frightened to death about the gap between their ability to find a target, identify a target, hit a target today or over the course of the next few years, and the day that space is not so vulnerable that it can stand alone. General Allvin, did you want to speak to that? And then I do have a question about
yeah, the only thing I add to what the Secretary said is specifically within reoptimization for great power competition, we are aligning our wings in order to be able to deploy how we expect to fight. So there will be 3 different types of wings. One will be deployable combat wings. One will be in-place combat wings. Think missile wings. Sure. But the other are combat generation wings, and these are very, very important. And this is where the 319th falls in. It needs to be able to generate the combat power that can fall into a wing, because you're not going to deploy the entire wing at once. That wouldn't be it. That would be for some of the other types of wings. So while ISR may not be mentioned specifically, neither is probably air mobility, or neither is maybe air refueling. Those are the parts that they're called the combat generation wings, because they will feed into the larger deployable construct. But we wouldn't expect the entire 319th to be able to go and deploy the entire wing, because it's such a HDLD asset, right? It needs to be able to be distributed all across. So that's why it's part of these combat generation wings. And I'm ready to talk at length, and I know I'm going to go over my time.
And, and as am I. So real quickly then, speaking of modernization, I'll just cut to it. I mean, we picked up some rumors in the last couple of days that the commercial engine replacement program might be in some doubt. Of course, that would be the re-engineering of things like the B-52, which has only been around about 60 years, and we expect it to be around another 30 or so. Just confirm for me that that's just a vicious lie that somebody's spreading. Then I'll be happy.
The commercial, the re-engineering of the B-52 is proceeding, if that's what you're asking about.
That's
Senator.
what I'm asking. Thank you.
It's a proceeding.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.